Welcome back for another episode of 217 South Mills.
Brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, our favorite pizza in town and the best pizza around, located at 911 North Hastings Way in Eau Claire. On this episode, we're going to talk a little about the Green Bay Packers, and we know it's past training camp as this episode's coming out, but we're in the end of training camp right now as we're recording. Talk about some of the Packer traditions, a little bit about the new Packer defense, and we're going to get into some NFL stories around the league. So, starting off, as you see on the TV screen, the experience of Green Bay Packers training camp bike tradition. And as you can see on the screen, every year during training camp, Packer players ride bikes from the locker room, across the parking lot, across Oneida Street to the practice field, and kids show up every year to ride the bikes. And it's been dating back all the way to the Vince Lombardi era, started at City Stadium, now it's at Lambeau. My story about it, when I was with the Packers, first off, and me and you talked about this a little bit, yeah, you got to pick a kid with a bike. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot that goes into it. You want to, like, there's kids sometimes go on vacation. And if there's not extra bikes, you might be walking when it's always nice to ride to practice. It's a little bit challenging. It is fans might not realize it, but it's a slight degree incline going back up. And after a long day, when your legs feel like spaghetti noodles, and especially if you have a kid on the back pegs of your bike, it's not the easiest thing to do. One of my funniest things, my rookie year, I didn't have a standard player every single day. I used to bounce around whoever was available. And one day, this little girl had nobody wanting to talk to her because she had a little toddler bike. So I said, come on, let's go. So I literally have the bike, I think the bike and my helmet in one hand, holding it, carrying it like a suitcase, and I'm holding her hand with the other going down to practice. So
is there photos of that? Because that would be hilarious.
There's not of that, but I will post, and hopefully it's on the screen right now. I believe I do have a photo of me riding a bike to practice. I'm pretty sure I have that, and if I do, it should be on the screen.
I think that they should have made a stipulation that, I think when this was introduced by, back in Vince Lombardi days, I think the bikes were probably a little more sturdy back then, probably made of steel, not plastic and all the other crap. I think that there should be a stipulation that if you want an NFL player to ride a bike, it has to be able to withstand a certain amount of weight, because let's face it, because I'm surprised you didn't, have people bent?
Oh, I'm sure, broke, flat tires. And I've heard over the years, which hindsight, I look at it, I'm like, I should have been doing that. Guys today will buy a bike for the kid and be like, you're coming every day, but here's your bike. And buy him a brand new bike that the guy likes, which is cool. But one of the things you pointed out in this picture was, if you look at the back left corner of the TV, it's a sidecar that a kid's standing on.
Yeah, that's attached to the bike. It must be custom made. A kid's standing there. A very small player, number, I don't know what number that is, 6 or 8.
Got to be a kicker.
Got to be a kicker of some sort. He looks like a kicker, and I'm not ripping on kickers. They're good people too. But that's kind of cool to have a custom made bike so you can participate in this tradition.
And it is a great tradition. Everything about Packers training camp is different. The amount of people that show up. They put bleachers on Oneida Street. They used to put bleachers up because I practiced on the west side of the Don Hudson Center. Now they basically have, I think it's like a 200-yard field on the east side of the Hudson Center that has bleachers going all the way along the east side that fans can sit in bleachers. But they used to put bleachers in the road, and thousands of fans showed up to watch practice. I went to Carolina, my last team, and one of the PR guys comes up to me, and I go, oh, look, I see some bleachers out here. You guys get fans? He goes, oh, we get a lot of fans that come out to watch practice. And I'm like, really? I go, how many? He goes, oh, we could get upwards of like 100 or 200 people. I go, 100 or 200? Like Green Bay, we'd have like 3,000 people watching us practice. Being at the fence 20 feet away from our O-line drills when our O-line coach, like we jump off sides, and our O-line coach, Larry Bechtel, who sadly passed away, is screaming at us, if you're going to be a dumb O-lineman, you're going to be a strong O-lineman. And all the fans start laughing. And you're like, Why did they get to witness this embarrassing moment? But
So was there a punishment for hopping off sides? I mean,
that was punishment was doing push-ups. That's why he said,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Well,
I sort of
half-assed the run on that one.
I sort of skipped over that. Yeah. So if you jumped off sides, you had to do, I think it was 10 push-ups. And while you're doing the push-ups, that's where he said if you're going to be a dumb lineman, you're going to be a strong lineman.
Right.
But to finish up with the bikes, this year, as many of you probably saw, what I thought was hilarious, the Baltimore Ravens did a joint practice with the Green Bay Packers, and Lamar Jackson, quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens, rode a bike, which was awesome. And I'm sure other teams get a kick out of that because they don't experience it at their home practices. Rode a kid's bike and almost fell off the bike trying to high five a fan. And ESPN got it.
Well, luckily he didn't hurt himself, or that would have been terrible.
Oh, my Lord.
That would have been terrible. Hey, by the way, you've mentioned this before, and I'm not sure if you mentioned it in the podcast, but you mentioned to me in person. You talked about how special it is and the reception that you received at being a Green Bay Packer, and even being, a former player of the Green Bay Packers compared to other teams that you played for or that you have friends that were affiliated with. It's completely different. The atmosphere here.
This state looks at its team's players. The Badgers, you could say other teams like Alabama, Nebraska, some of these long historic teams take pride in their players. But at the professional level, when I was in Washington or Carolina, you'd go out in public or to dinner with a bunch of players. Nobody'd bat an eye. They wouldn't think twice. Just, there's a couple of big guys having dinner. In Green Bay, a practice squad player who is a player that practices with the team but doesn't not dress or play on Sundays. A practice squad player would be walking through the Green Bay Mall, and fans would know where you went to high school, where you went to college, what his stats were. They knew everything about you. They knew your face. They spotted you right away. And it's just different in Green Bay. Even as a former Packer, the way the Green Bay Packers roll out the red carpet when a former player wants to come back to a game, the way we have the ability, we get invited to do golf outings, to give talks at different events. I've given I believe it's the high school Scholar Athlete Award banquet. I gave the keynote speech to. I've given keynote speeches at different sporting banquets. I've been invited to do that where other players, I know players have won 2 Super Bowls with other teams that they're like, you never get called back for anything. You never get invited to do this or do that, unless you're like in New York. I had a teammate that played in New York that won a Super Bowl with the Giants, never gets a call. Now, maybe if you're an Eli Manning, you're getting a call, but just a run-of-the-mill player, we're in Green Bay. It doesn't matter if you're, Brett Favre, Bill Ferrario, or just whatever guy on the bottom rung of the ladder. If you put the green and gold on, they remember you as a Packer for life. That's awesome. Which is special in the state and special with that organization.
So I think that this tradition is pretty cool that it carries on, and I think it just kind of shows the passion of the fans in Wisconsin have for their teams.
Absolutely.
And I know that we experienced that at Wisconsin and how well our fans travel. We used to call it Pasadena West.
Yeah.
When we won Rose Bowls?
Camp Randall West.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Camp Randall.
Yeah, wow.
See, you called me out for screwing up.
Yeah, I've been hitting
We're a little bit too late tonight. We didn't get our coffee for this episode.
Yeah, evidently not.
No, it is a phenomenal tradition, and it will be around forever, barring nobody gets injured, which they're like Lamar Jackson. There's been a couple close calls, but nothing too serious. The fans love it. And the other thing, too, with the amount of fans that come out and the way the season ticket waiting list is just absolutely there's people on the waiting list that'll never get tickets. I'm sorry to say, but it's just so big and so many people will them down within their family. There's people, what surprised me that I learned from talking to fans, there's people that take like a week or 2 off work, and that's their summer vacation to come to training camp for a week straight. Every day show up because they get to sit first row or fifth row from the practice field where they don't even have the ability to get in the stadium because they can't get tickets, or the resale of tickets is just out of control, as we all know with Packer tickets. So yeah, the training camp, it's a big deal. A lot of people get out there because they can't get in the Lambeau during the regular season.
And you mentioned how they roll out the red carpet for you as a former player. I got to experience that with you when we went to a football game here last season. And yeah, it's pretty impressive. And I got to meet one of my childhood idols in the what do you call that? A suite?
Alumni suite.
Suite. Yeah, it was just great. And that was Jeff Dellenbach, who was from the same part of the state and played at a I mean, I think it was Wausau East or
Yep.
Wausau West, one of the Wausau schools. I don't
Yes.
recall now. But I felt like a little kid. I haven't, as a kid, I watched him play,
Yep.
and he played at Wisconsin, and that was huge for me to see a local kid go, and then obviously had a great career with the Dolphins and with the Packers, and so it was a very cool experience. To
It
be
is
able
exciting,
to do that.
and I do think a couple other NFL teams are starting to follow suit with that, having an alumni suite. So a lot of teams have an alumni weekend, but what Green Bay does offer is for former players to be able to come back. There are certain number of games you're able to come back to, or certain games you're able to come back to, but when that's allowed and when it's not at capacity and you're able to make it in, yeah, they do roll out the red carpet. You're pulling in, going right up to suite level. Now, the funny thing is, it's not even so much about watching the game, like you said. It's about hanging out with the guys in the suite.
Right.
Like for me, I usually get lucky where there's usually one or two players that I played with in Green Bay. Then there's many players that were younger than me and older than me. And it's just that interacting, just similar as we talked to with Wisconsin, with Heritage Hall, going in there where, like if we want to watch a game, we're more so watching it on TV. When we go to a game, it's more for the experience and then having that camaraderie of hanging out with players that we played with and then the ones before and after us.
So we've had numerous conversations, me and you, about football camp with the Badgers. I mean, again, one of those impactful moments in our life, and it was hard, and we got through it, and now we look back with fond memories of it, even though it was miserable. I don't think that you even talked to me about this. Compare fall football camp from Wisconsin to Green Bay. Like, now it's a job for you. When you're at that level.
Yep.
So
I think difficulty-wise, I still think I have to put Wisconsin ahead of it, just because of how much we went live, starting off our first 2 years with 3 days before we finally dropped to 2 days, and our age. Like I was 17 when I first showed up. You were 18 when you first showed up. We were still teenagers for a couple of years while playing for the Badgers, where you're a little bit more mature by the time you hopefully get to the NFL level. Now, some of us are, some of us aren't. But the one thing where the NFL, you get a little bit more downtime, more comfort. Meeting, the whole facility is air conditioned. We stayed at St. Norbert's College in the dorms there for the first 4 weeks of the 6-week training camp. Then the last 2 weeks you were able to stay at home. But that's a big difference there too, is training camp 6 weeks. 6 weeks, and of my 3 years in Green Bay, so typically you have 4 preseason. Well, now they're trying to change all that and reduce or add. I'm not sure what it is, but they're trying to change the preseason. When I was playing, it was 4 preseason games. I got lucky enough out of my first year and last year in Green Bay, we played in the Hall of Fame game, which made it 5 preseason games. And that really stunk. You're showing up to camp a week earlier than everybody else. So essentially camp, those weeks were 7 weeks long instead of 6. So the length of it, that light at the end of the tunnel, you really don't see. And then once you start the season, instead of a 11 or 12 game season, now you have a 17-week season. Now I think it's an 18-week season with 1 bye week, 17 games, and then potentially playoffs. So the season goes tremendously long. But just comparing camps, physicality-wise and all that, Wisconsin, hands down, tougher. Now, nervousness-wise, like Wisconsin, we felt pretty confident we weren't going to get sent home. You never know. Like, we did have nerves at times, but at the NFL level, you never know. I mean, newspapers are coming out every day. I learned really quick, don't look at the paper. I forget the writer's name, but I was one of the guys that he always loved putting on the bubble. And I freaking hated that term. I'd look on the bubble again. I'm like, shit. Like, I better not screw up on 1-on-1 pass rush again today, or I might get sent home, like literally sent home, cut and fired. But so there is more stress that way. And like you said, it is a job, but it's also, it was just a lot easier. Like, we had more luxuries in the locker room and the lounge and couches and air conditioning and more comfortable chairs in meeting rooms. We all had office chairs, and just from that aspect, it was nice and not as difficult as college. I mean, that 2-week period was intense that we went through, and it wasn't like that. Now, I'm not saying we didn't have I had Sherman as a coach, and we had times where halfway through practice he thought it sucked, and he started the whole thing over like Barry Alvarez did, which turned a 2-hour practice into a 3.5-hour practice. And yeah, that absolutely sucked. Bumped all the meetings back. Everything was later. I was good friends with Kevin Stemke at the time. We roomed together on the Packers. We were friends, obviously friends before that as well. But we roomed together a rookie year. I'd come back to the dorm, and he's playing his guitar, strumming away the guitar and singing songs. And I'm like, I have a headache. Can you please go down in the lobby? And they're like in the common area of the dorms. And like, I got to go to sleep. Like, just come back at curfew, whatever. And you go to bed if you want, but I got to get to bed. So yeah, there's pros and cons, but hands up Badgers.
So then you played for the Packers, and you had a stint with
Cup of Coffee with the Redskins,
and then
Joe Gibbs' first year back, and then Carolina.
Okay, so now compare those three camps, mini camps, whatever you want to call them, to Green Bay.
Washington was the worst camp. That was Joe Gibbs' first year back since he left the Redskins, I think in the 80s. He went and did NASCAR forever, came back to Washington, and he ran training camp like it was 1982 again. I mean, so our starting right guard was out for all of training camp. He was recovering from an ACL injury, and we did not have a third string guard at left or right. So I was the only right guard on the team.
Oh, wow.
And the way Joe Gibbs ran our training camp was off. So typically, let me say the traditional way. Typically, it was run like it did happen in college. Mm-hmm. You'd go team first and 10, 12 plays. Then you'd flip, and the starting defense would go against the scout team, first and 10, 12 plays. Then you'd flip, the starting O would come up, and it might be second and mid, like second and 5. You do 8 plays. Then you flip, you do defense. So you're constantly getting 6 to 12 play breaks every time you do plays. Mm-hmm. Well, Joe Gibbs, the way he did it in the 80s, same way he did it in 2004, he goes, all right, offense up. We'd run 50 plays.
50, 5-0?
5-0 plays on offense against the look team defense. And then he'd go, all right, minute water break. You'd get what I looked over. Corey Raymer was the starting center for the Redskins at the time.
And Corey Raymer played at Wisconsin.
He was a former Badger. And I go, Corey, could you take a couple snaps for me at guard? Corey grabbed the Gatorade, chucked it out on the field. I was like, all right, thanks. Chugged the Gatorade, and the whistle blew. Now I'm the second team guard because I did 50 plays as the first team guard. Now I'm the second team guard, and I got to do 50 plays against the starting defense of the Redskins. I tell you, there's a lot of Bill Ferrario puke on the Redskins Redskin Park field. I puked because it was the same, and that was a practice every day. Morning practice, that was the afternoon practice. Next day, morning, and that was the same every single day. Now, coaching wise. Team-wise, I think Green Bay, hands down, the legacy, the tradition, the stadium, the history, everything about it, Green Bay, hands down, best team I played for. Coaching-wise, I'm not a fan of Mike Sherman. There wasn't many people a fan of Mike Sherman. I don't think he was a great head coach. I think Mike Sherman could be a decent position coach, and that's what he was the majority of his career before he got a head job. And I think everything went downhill when he took over the GM and head coach. I don't think anybody should have that ability. I don't think anybody could be successful doing it, and it's been proven they can't. So he'd probably be the worst head coach. It was crazy, but it was fun playing for Gibbs because he was a coach when we were little kids.
Absolutely.
You just know those stories, and he was the same Joe Gibbs. He sounded the same. He acted the same. I think he was even funnier than what we thought he would have been. But the best head coach I had was Carolina with John Fox. Now, the funny thing, those were the easiest practices. We had an okay team who just missed the playoffs, but we went out there. We did everything fast as could be. We were in shape. That was probably the lightest I was in my career by Carolina, and that was probably at like 304 to 306. But I was in shape. I was fast. I was strong. But our practices were boom, 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 and then it was done. Like the first day I showed up, when I came in mid-season in 2004, I believe, and I sign on a Tuesday, start practice on Wednesday, and we're doing some stuff out there, running some plays, whatever. Whistles start blowing. I go, we're going to start practice. I thought it was like pat and go and all this stuff. I go, we're going to start practice. They're like, dude, that's it. We're done. That's a Wednesday practice. I'm like, wait a second. We're done? It was easy as could be. It was fast now. Don't get me wrong. Like, you go up to the line, downside hut, run the play, boom. You're running back to the huddle, call the play. You're running back to the line of scrimmage. Everything was fast movement and executing. but it was just and we didn't even do that many pads with Fox. Fox was one of those guys, let's be efficient, let's be fast, let's do it right, and let's get out of here. And that's the way we did it. So, but John Fox as a coach at the NFL level was the closest thing I would compare to Coach Alvarez. Yeah. He was just a guy, you learn to respect him. I don't think I talked to any head coach as much as I talked to Coach Fox. Coach Fox was the guy that when I got cut from Green Bay, I was furious when I got cut from Green Bay. Didn't think I deserved to be cut. I was sold the story like, well, you graded out at this. And I'm like, that's bullshit. I know grades, like you can't say I'm cut because I was 1 point below somebody else. It came down to dollars and cents. And I knew the dollars that came in were the dollars reason why I got cut, because my salary equaled the person they brought in, and they brought that person in. They had to cut me, and it's business, but you're still upset about it. Washington, that was a weird story, but Carolina, when I got cut from there, I put my arms out and John Fox gave me a hug. Really? I was like, hey, thank you very much for the opportunity. He's like, hey, I'm sorry it ended up this way. I go, I understand. I go, like, I'm around if something happens, if there's an injury. He's like, of course, you're one of the first guys calling. And he was the type of guy, like I personally invited him to my house for spaghetti dinner once. Just he didn't come, and I think he knew because there was a lot of players. He knew we also gambled and played poker and stuff. Mm-hmm. But we would talk about it. Of course, a former Badger, you're in meetings 20 minutes early, and we was in there, be like, hey, I heard you're doing a spaghetti dinner at your house. I'm like, yeah, we do it every. I think we did it every Thursday night, Thursday or Friday night. And I said to him the one, I was like, yeah, you should come over. He's like, yeah, I hear you play cards too. He started asking us what kind of poker, this and that. He was just down to earth coach. Cool. Would come up my first couple of weeks there, would come sit at the locker next to me, which was open, and just shoot house practice going. Did you get your car down here yet? Have you found a place to stay?
That's awesome.
Yeah, just down to earth. And like I said, made you want to run through a brick wall for him, where Sherman was a complete opposite. 3 years, he talked to me 5 times. And the last time I think was, or the second to last time was, where's Frank Winters? And I told him he's in the shower. It was just crazy. Where John Fox, I think the first 5 days sat next to my locker, shooting the shit while I was taking my shoes and tape and all that off.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I said, I think it gives, even me and our fans a perspective that
stuff that fans don't
you have
see
experience.
And
like I said, it's for me, it's awesome because that's a level I never attained. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Next up, back to the Packers. This is something I get a kick out of. I saw an article. It says Green Bay Packers implementing the 4-3 defense. Like it's ground shatter, earth breaking.
This is the newest defense in the world.
Yeah, nobody's ever heard of it.
Invention.
Green Bay's never done it, I'm sure. Yeah. What this reminds me of is in my time in Green Bay, when I was done, Sherman was done shortly after I left, and Coach McCarthy came in, and Mark Tauscher was still there. And I remember all that the news talked about was Mike McCarthy's bringing the zone blocking offense to the Green Bay Packers. And I go, wait, did somebody take it away? Like what did I do when I was in Green Bay? And I'm like, I actually have my playbook, and I open up my playbook and I'm like, zone, inside zone, outside zone, zone left, zone right. Like I go, we block zone. So I go, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe football's evolved and I didn't get the memo that something's changed. So I called up Tausch and I was like, hey, are you guys doing a different type of zone? He goes, no, same zone as we always did. I go, you calling it something different? Are you terminology different? Are the plays different? He goes, no, same. And the media just picks up on it. So like with this, every team, so nowadays everybody runs a 3-4. And my argument to it is it's the sexy new defense. When I played at the NFL level, I think the Atlanta Falcons were the only team that ran the 3-4 traditionally. So whenever you played Atlanta, you had to change your whole deal because everything had to prepare for the 3-4. Where against every other team, you might see it once or twice a game, and you sort of figure it out on the run. Just like the weird stuff we saw in college. Minnesota lining up off the ball, teams bouncing down into a Bears front. Yep. But nowadays, every team knows how to run a 3-4 and a 4-3. So this article just makes me laugh. Like,
did you have a preference as to which one you went against? I mean, it didn't really matter to us in college. Yeah. I just didn't know if there was one like.
No, I'd say for run blocking, probably the 4-3 because you have more down linemen. I'd rather block a down lineman than chase a backer. Yep. And I'd probably say the same with pass blocking because pass blocking, you got 4 backers. The stunts get a little bit more evolved. Like I think we used to call it a Mickey Mouse stunt because essentially you'd call both. There'd be times where you could look at both middle linebackers in the 4-3 and the way they could cross. Now you got 2 backers coming into 2 gaps. everybody understanding which one you got to pick up, which one the back is picking up, because that's easy. If you go left and the back goes left, all of a sudden quarterback gets lit up on we used to call it Mickey Mouse stun. But yeah, I'd say 4-3, just because I was used to blocking more probably.
All right.
So helmets, something new that a lot of us are seeing now in the NFL is this Guardian cap, which I don't know. Joe,
we had a version of it because one of our
that was the Don Beebe helmet.
Yep.
Because Don Beebe first started wearing it, then one of our teammates.
It was like a mushroom head.
It was
a mushroom helmet.
It was a helmet on top of a helmet.
It was a soft foamy pad, and you had the.
It was a hard. It was like somebody cut a helmet. Like if you take this helmet. Here.
I thought it was just like a little foam thing.
No, it was almost like you got this helmet that we could see, and you could see we hit a little bit too much with our heads. This was one of my old helmets. They would take another helmet and basically cut above the ear hole and then glue it on top.
Oh, wow.
So it was like two domes. That's what the Don Beebe helmet was.
Gotcha.
So this helmet, this Guardian cap, this is basically the foam on top of the helmet.
Gotcha.
Which... here's my thing. You keep this safety, and we've talked about this before. Safety is like a pendulum. When we were kids, the pendulum was all the way up here. There was no safety whatsoever. We used to wake up in the morning and watch top 10 hits, and you'd watch safeties and linebackers make guys snore because they knocked them unconscious, and that got them up higher on the top 10 hit list, and that's what we enjoyed watching.
I remember Chuck Cecil from the Packers. That was the one person that you're like, holy cow, that guy was just
going to put people to sleep.
Yep.
And Ed Reed.
Ed Reed. Yep.
Put people to sleep. Ronnie Lott. Take somebody's head off.
Yep.
And we thrived on it. Now the pendulum swung all the way the other way, where if you like exhale and breathe on somebody, you might get a personal foul.
Correct.
Hey, Joe, what the heck does it mean when you say Cabin Coffee Altoona is a roastery? Are you making fun of the coffee or something?
Come on now, Bill. Sounds to me like you've had one too many shots to the head. It means we're a roastery. We buy our beans green from all over the world and roast right here on site. It's the freshest coffee you can get.
Is that why one place I used to go to tasted burnt and the other place tastes like brown flavored water?
That's exactly why, Bill. So stop on down to 2922 Meadowlark Lane. Cabin Coffee Altoona. Just remember, folks, everything's better at the cabin.
You know, if you touch them above the shoulder, you might get ejected from the game. And wearing these Guardian caps, the first thing it makes me think is you're giving me more protection on my head.
I'm going to use my head more.
That gives me the ability to hit with my head more because now I'm not going to get hurt. I've said from the beginning of this whole safety deal, you want guys to stop hitting. Like, you really want this to be as serious as you're saying it is, take the helmets out of football. That'll stop guys from hitting with their head.
So you still want to wear shoulder pads and everything else, but just don't wear helmets?
Well, if you don't want guys to hit with their head, take the helmets off. If you keep making helmets better, now you get another foam thing on your head. You won't get a concussion with this. Well, I'm going to lead with my head.
We led with our head anyway.
No, we did. But now I'm saying now you have more protection.
True.
You're going to lead. How do you give somebody more protection than say, but don't use your head?
And I agree with that.
Like, it's just weird that it's like, I'm going to give you all, like,
it's like telling a kid, don't touch this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, I don't know the solution, but I do know in the NFL now, there is a stipulation in every NFL player's contract that they have to sign that says, I will never sue the NFL for head injuries derived from playing in the NFL. So you can't sue the NFL anymore. Since that concussion lawsuit's done, every player, I think starting in 2010, it's part of their contract that they have to sign that says, I will never sue the NFL due to head injuries. So with that being said, let's go back to playing football. They're professionals that are getting paid lots of money. All of us knew what we were getting into. Here's my big thing. Me and you are beat to hell.
Yep.
We walk horribly. Our bodies ache. We're in pain constantly. My only thing that I was naive about was I knew it was going to happen. I was naive about the age it was going to happen at. So I used to watch, whether it was watching ESPN or whatever, interviews of older players, and you'd be like, oh, they're beat up, or you'd hear an interview like, oh, it takes me so long to get out of bed in the morning and get my joints working. Right. I'd hear these people speak, and maybe I was misjudging their age, but I just had this number in my head, 60. Yeah. When I turned 60, my body's going to fall apart. Yeah. What I didn't realize in the naiveness, when I turned 40, my body fell apart.
And I think maybe and I don't know, do most people who didn't play sports, did their bodies start falling apart at 40? I don't know. But
I don't think as fast
I
and as
thought-
severe as ours.
I would have thought 60, 65 also.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it came a lot damn sooner than I was hoping
Yeah,
for.
and you
That's
think
for
about
sure.
too, like people always ask about injuries. They're like, "Oh, how many injuries?" Well, we had plenty of injuries, but I mean, obviously, you had a career-ending injury.
Mm.
But prior to that, we had many injuries that we didn't have surgery for when we were playing, just because you didn't want to stop playing. Afterwards, it's amazing how the surgeries just start shoulders, like with me, shoulder, elbow, replaced hip at 43, I think I was, or 43, I think I was. Got a hip replaced. You with the back, the knees, the
now
shoulders, possible neck. Like it's astronomical.
Mhm.
But at the same time, too, we knew what we were getting into.
Right.
And if you could put us back into an 18 or 22-year-old body, we'd do it all over again.
And then I always say, and I'll say it until the day I die, I took more from football than football took from me.
Yep. Absolutely.
Hands down.
100%.
And, people are like, well, how can you say that? I've incorporated football in every aspect of my life, whether it's my family, my business, my work ethic. Everything about me goes back to that sport and what I learned, the camaraderie, the grind, and how to work. And, so people say, how could you possibly want to go back to it? I would go back yesterday. With the exact same results.
Yep.
Knowing what's going to happen.
Yep. Even after all the hell we talk about.
All the hell we talk about, I would go back yesterday.
Yep.
And that's such a, and I don't know if people still have that kind of passion for sport. I have no idea, but I'm a has-been. I'm a 47-year-old has-been, and I still think that way.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. I 100% agree with you. All right, so some more stuff going around the NFL. In this story, it made me laugh. It brought up a personal memory for me that I'm going to talk about. It brought up a memory that Joe remembered from Wisconsin. So the San Diego Chargers escaped being stuck in a hotel elevator in Dallas when they traveled there for a preseason game. So Justin Herbert, amongst other players, I'm not sure how long it was. I think it was at least 45 minutes, if not much longer than that. But they were stuck in an elevator and had to get freed. I'll tell my story. So in 2002, the Green Bay Packers wanted to send me to NFL Europe. And needless to say, there was a little side argument about whether it was right for me to go or right for me to stay and do mini camps. But I ended up going training. I went to training camp, which was in Tampa Bay, Florida. And while I was there, one of my quarterbacks was Zach Kustak, the famous quarterback from Northwestern. And I was a center. And there was one other center on the team, and I believe two other quarterbacks. One was, his nickname from Green Bay was Hardware Hank Burris. Hank Burris, after playing a couple years in the NFL, went up to Canada, and I think he won 2, if not 3, Grey Cups in a row.
Nice.
So I ended up being a crazy successful quarterback in the NFL. But we would always joke during this NFL Europe training camp as centers how the every quarterback, when they come up to center, slap you on the hip or the ass cheek to let you know they're there, get ready, their hands going under, we're about to start the cadence. Well, all 3 of those guys did it so different. And Hardware Hank almost like caressed our cheek. Like you didn't even know it was a slap. You're like, is he touching me or is there a gust of wind? Zach would come up, give us a decent crack. And then our third quarterback, I apologize, I forget his name. I think he was from New Hampshire, the University of New Hampshire. He'd like leave a handprint on your hip. He would slap you so hard. Well, us idiots are all in the elevator together, and Zach's on the elevator with us. And I apologize, I forget our other center's name. He went on to play for the Bears. And me and the other center were joking. We have the quarterback in the elevator as it's moving. We have the quarterbacks in the center position, and we're slapping them on the ass cheek, letting them know how it feels when they do it. And we must have bounced a little too hard, and the elevator gets stuck. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And we're on our way. I don't know I can't remember if it was an off day or we were on our way to meetings, but we're stuck on this elevator. I bet you until we got a good hour, 45 minutes to an hour.
That's a lot.
Getting hot.
That's a lot of body heat in that elevator. Holy cow.
Now there was a lot of joking going on, a lot of funny stories, stuff like that. So finally, between us trying to pry the doors open on the inside and maintenance prying them open on the outside, we get the elevator doors open. When we do, we're in between the 5th and the 6th floor of this hotel. And I think, I don't know, from watching TV shows, I'm like, they're going to work on the elevator and get it working again and lower us down to the 5th floor or raise us up to the 6th floor and we're going to get out. Well, the 6th floor is too high. There's no way anybody could get up. And these maintenance men that don't speak very fluent English are basically telling us to jump. Like we're halfway between the 5th and 6th. They want us to jump down, out the elevator and down and land on the 5th floor. Well, before we do that, I lay down on the floor and just sort of like look straight down and I go, okay, there's the edge of the elevator. There's the edge of the floor. But I like angle back. I go, that's the elevator shaft that goes 5 floors down. And they're just being like, it's okay. It's okay. Just jump. Just jump. And like we go to the back of the elevator, have a little powwow. Like, are we going to do this or should we just wait it out here till maintenance actually fixes the? But we all get up the courage. We jump. I said to Joe, he's like, "Did you jump?" I go, "Yeah, I jumped." But I go, "I think I did. It was probably very uncoordinated, but like a tuck and roll to go forward, And it probably looked hilarious. I should have seen if there was hotel video. But yeah, that was my elevator experience, and I learned. As a big guy, don't mess around in the elevator when it's moving.
And that brought me back to a memory from Madison, the Badgers. And in the McLean Center, we had an elevator, and that went up like, was it 3 floors or 2 floors?
It was
3 floors.
Well,
no,
because basement, main level, second floor.
Second floor. Yeah.
So whatever you want.
Okay, however you want to do the math there.
Irregardless, it was an elevator.
Irregardless. And you know who you are when we say that. Irregardless, we had, and I don't remember the position. Was he a receiver?
Or a receiver or DB? Or a corner.
And I don't remember his name, but his
nickname
was Bucky. And we called him Bucky. And Bucky, and my apologies for not remembering your name. You probably don't remember mine either, but that's fine.
If we figure it out, we'll send this episode to him.
Absolutely. And he stuck his arm in the elevator and thinking that it would open the door. And it didn't open the door, and it went up, and it broke his arm.
Yep. And so some of us, I think I was one of them that was still in training table on the middle level eating. And then next thing you know, we just heard the most screeching scream.
Bone-chilling scream.
Yes, bone-chilling scream is the exact terminology. And everybody looked, and all you see is like a forearm and fingers sticking out at the ceiling. Of the elevator, and it snapped.
It snapped it, and then next day he's in a freaking cast and a sling, and So I'd be careful for football players in elevators. They're the real deal. You get stuck in there, or you break your arm. I mean, and you know that.
And I tell you what, too, as a big guy, I think we got our ideas skewed about elevators at Wisconsin, not trusting the weight sign because we would put I don't know so let's say that said.
1,500?
1,500? Yeah. We easily would put 3,000 to 4,000 pounds on that.
You would put as many offensive linemen in there.
Guys would squish back
and squeeze sideways just to go up the floor because I'm not taking the steps. Are you freaking out of your mind?
No.
I will risk my life going in the elevator rather than walk the steps.
I would rather fall to my death than walk the steps during football. Well, absolutely.
That's another story, too, for another time. And he didn't fall to his death. He kind of threw himself off the steps. So that's another time for another story.
That'd be another episode. All right.
Let's talk about Russell Wilson.
Yeah. What's next for him?
Okay. I don't know. He came to Wisconsin. He was a phenomenal player. He went and established himself in Seattle as a high prolific, professional, great player.
Went to 2 Super Bowls. Won one Super Bowl.
I mean,
and Super Bowl winning quarterback.
But now people are talking about, because he went over to.
He went to the Broncos.
Yep.
And what first started with the Broncos with Sean Payton, and there was all that talk about all his circle being in the locker room, his mental guy, his stretching guy,
entourage.
His entourage coming inside the facility. And I think it was Sean Payton. I don't believe Sean Payton was there when he started. Russell was already there. Sean Payton came in, and Sean said, no more entourage, personnel only. But everybody saw the highlight, which was probably leaked. Everybody, before the season starts, does those videos like the starting offense. Like even myself, that I wasn't listed as a starter. I still do the Bill Ferrario from Scranton, Pennsylvania. You do the speaking into the camera just in case you get in. They have that clip.
Right.
Well, Russell, being the franchise quarterback, started doing that Broncos, let's go, or Broncos, let's ride, and he kept doing it over and over. It became a meme. I was about to say meme. So that started making fun of him, and he did not have success in Denver. And then he goes to Pittsburgh, and we think, he's going to start over. And then what happens? The Bears, they want the first pick, or they get the first pick of the draft. They send Fields to Pittsburgh, and now it's two quarterbacks fighting for a job. He doesn't even know if he's going to be a starter. Like, my question was, is it and I know a player like that won't even think about it because he has success, he knows he can play, but should he retire to salvage his legacy? I mean, you're a two-time Super Bowl attendee, a one-time Super Bowl champion, which how many great Dan Marino doesn't have a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson does. He's going to go down as a quarterback with the Super Bowl ring, but how much are you tarnishing your legacy by continually, like, just, I don't know if it's the celebrity, I don't know if it's the media, the entourage, I don't know what it is, but...
Well, I'm going to give you two examples. You have two dipshits here sitting across from each other that would give their left leg right now to go back and play football. So I wouldn't want to freaking hang it up. If I still had a chance to freaking do it, Bill,
I agree.
My God, I would go back.
But at the same time, too, a guy like I don't know. I go both ways. Like, that was my argument with Favre. It's like when he finally retired, he was still probably in the top 20, if not top 15 of best quarterbacks active in the NFL.
Right.
And he called it quits, but it took him so long to call it quits. We saw Joe Montana, one of the best to ever do it, couldn't call it quits. Had to go to Kansas City. You know what I mean? So,
but you can go all the way back. I think Johnny Unitas even went to a different team and then came back. And so, I mean, I understand because your heart and your mind still want to do it, but your body's failing, and that's hard to accept.
It absolutely is. But to our earlier point, how you mentioned all the success he had early, he had a phenomenal career at NC State. An even better career 1 year at Wisconsin. Should have been a first round. Should have been a top 3 draft pick if he was only probably 2 to 3 inches taller.
You know about that.
And don't start now. I'm like an inch shorter than you, and you want to keep going on that. And ends up winning the Super Bowl. Going to 2, winning 1, and then after that, it's like you're at the damn near the peak of the mountain, and now he's just been on a downhill slide ever since. And it's just sad to see, especially somebody who's a former Badger like this.
I agree. But again, I'd have a hard time hanging it up too. I truly would.
No, I understand that part as well. But another quarterback in the NFL who's at the beginning of his career, who's starting off with tremendous success, Caleb Williams. So obviously Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 pick in the draft. And the big talk about him is everyone's assuming this great success out of year 1. And that's the one thing I'm not trying to diminish fans, but I laugh about it with fans, is they always assume. You know, like some of these quarterbacks on this list, Trevor Lawrence. Everyone's like, oh my God, he won a national championship. You know, like he might take the Jaguars to a Super Bowl. He had a subpar rookie year. Jameis Winston, number 1 pick overall. You know, subpar rookie year. Like Johnny Manziel. People thought Johnny Manziel was going to change the NFL when he got there, and look what happened there. I'm not saying Caleb Williams is a Johnny Manziel. I think Caleb Williams speaks better than most. I think there was a lot of questions I had, and I think we talked about it before the draft with him not doing anything. I don't think he went to the combines. He didn't even show up at the combines. Questions like that, I was like, whoa, what kind of decision making? Who's in his ear? But ever since the draft, he said all the right things. He's done all the right things. He looks the part. But at the same time, too, you're not in the season yet. You haven't gone through an 18-week season, then playoff, and then make the playoffs, then succeed in the playoffs when you're playing the best teams. He hasn't done it yet. Like, let's not put a ring on the guy's hand. He hasn't even. Well, by the time this show airs, we're probably going to be a couple weeks in the NFL season. But the time we're talking about this, he hasn't even taken a snap in a regular season game. And you had mentioned before about Green Bay's past and the success they've had.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what the secret is, but it looks like we potentially have another good quarterback starting based on his first year operation. You know, we put so much pressure on this quarterback, and rightfully so, with the millions of dollars that we're paying this person to perform. There's a tremendous learning curve from high school to college. I can only imagine the learning curve from college to the professional, the speed of the game, etc. You know, we had Jordan Love sat 3 years behind Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre, obviously, for like a decade or something.
And Favre was behind Mikowski before he took over.
So is that the recipe? Because now you look at Peyton Manning, his rookie year, and he set the NFL record for most interceptions this season, and then you have his coach Playoffs. I mean, that notorious.
Exactly.
That is never going to die.
And they still air it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which good, because you know what? That's horseshit. Calling out your starting quarterback who you just drafted, pulling that shit. Like, in my opinion, it was classless.
Yeah.
Don't know the guy as a player. That's how I felt. And I hope that lives on in infamy. You might as well just put it on your gravestone. Playoffs.
And I think there are some college programs that it might be a similar tradition or transition from college to the NFL, but there's so many college programs that just put quarterbacks in a shotgun, and quarterbacks are reading off a wristband, and so is the rest of the team.
Very true.
All of a sudden, you get to the NFL level, you're going under center.
You're making calls too.
And
Adjustments.
You're making the whole play call in the huddle that they're not used to doing. They're used to doing the run and gun. Oh, it's play number 7, or it's the
read it off my card.
It's the Oprah sign. Like, oh, we know what to do. Like, now you got to read a whole play. And I don't know. Like, I even think we've talked about play calling before. I even think the type of play, depending on the coach you have, is more complicated than I experienced 20 years ago. These coaches are just. Who's the coach? Who got fired from the Raiders? He was in Tampa when they won the Super Bowl. He's got the blonde hair.
John Gruden.
Dude, listen to some of those highlights. I forget the quarterback that was in there, but Gruden's yelling at that. Those plays are like this.
I wouldn't be able to. I tried to repeat him. I couldn't repeat what he was saying. I had no idea what the hell he was saying.
It wasn't like us in college being like, all right, Ray, Y split, X zebra on 2.
Yep.
Like, that was it in our huddle. Like, you get to the NFL, it's like X, on and on and on. Like, when I got to Green Bay, I remember Favre was always a jokester. I get in the huddle. At the time, I was alternating between the 1s and 2s at guard. And it was my first snap during the team drill running with the 1s. And I get in the huddle, and Mike Flanagan was the starting center that year. Mike's to my left, and who's to my right? I think it was Tausch. To my right, I was at left guard. Clifton was to my left, and Favre gets in the huddle and does this whole play, and I go, ready, break, and I run up to the line, and I realize I look to my left and right, none of the linemen are out there. I look back, he called a play that wasn't even a play, and I was just like, act as if, like, I'm not going to be like,
until you make it.
I'm not going to say what was that. What am I? I'm like, I'll figure it out at the line. I'll ask Chad or Mike, like, who am I covering here? And it was like all funny, but that's the type of play, just all this weird terminology. And it's going to be a learning curve for him. So
it's kind of funny.
Sticking with the Bears, though, talking about funny.
Yeah.
So the Bears finished preseason 4-0.
Yeah.
We got these. What's the word again? Meme, right? Meme.
Yeah.
There's these memes out there that the best team ever in Chicago history is the 4-0 preseason Bears. The number 2 best team is the 85 Bears. Like, people are getting crazy. It's preseason,
right?
They're going against 2s and 3s.
You're just trying to find out who your players are, who you want to keep on your roster, who's going to be able to produce.
Joe, some of these guys that Caleb Williams might be throwing the ball against might be working at the AT&T call center next month.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this is not – there's been teams historically through preseason that go 4-0 and don't make the playoffs.
And then
there's been teams that have gone 0-4 and won the Super Bowl that year. Preseason, like you said, it's about getting better. It's about figuring out your personnel, figuring out your depth, knocking rust off, all that stuff. Records, yes. As a coach, do you want to win that game? Absolutely.
Right.
Do you want to win every game? Absolutely. But to say a team went 4-0 during preseason and that equates into something during the regular season, absolutely not.
I agree.
Not one bit. There's so many teams that play. There's teams that players don't even play the whole preseason. And then their first snap is the first game.
Right.
It's just not the same.
I agree. And unfortunately, I have family members that are Bears fans. I'm not sure what the hell happened there.
I don't know what happened. I think somebody might have.
And I will represent, because my younger brother, Pat, has been a Bears fan since he was a kid. And my sisters have all followed suit there, and they're like lifelong Bears fans, and I don't understand why. I don't condone it.
See, what's funny is, so I didn't know your sisters as well, but I knew Pat, especially living in the Wausau area. I really thought Pat was a smart guy. Yeah, well, I didn't realize that he was a Bears fan until probably like a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
and it was astonishing. And
it's not something that I talk about, Bill.
I understand. I mean, there's shame involved in that.
You don't ever show your poor cards. I mean, you try to show the highlight. Yeah, Pat, and I know you're listening to this, and right. Like, I mean, seriously, what the hell happened to you, man?
Pat, get smart, change it up.
Yeah, figure it out, man.
We'll welcome you to the good side.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll probably get made fun of for a couple years for hopping on the bandwagon, but follow a winning team.
Yeah, I mean, 85 was so long ago.
Yeah, I bet. I know for a fact, and I've seen her eyes. His wife gets embarrassed in public being out with him because other people also know he's embarrassed.
And that's my sister-in-law, and and I feel bad for her too.
I do too. And like I've seen the look.
I know
it's embarrassing.
I know, and I appreciate her sticking through.
He's almost like a captain of a ship that's sinking. Yeah. He's just trying to do the right thing and go down with the ship.
Yeah, but
he doesn't have to though. He has family on a ship that's right next door, that's throwing a life preserver out to him.
I know.
It just grab the orange buoy and come over to the Packers,
and we'll pull you over.
Yes, yeah, gladly.
Yeah.
I'll even help.
Yeah, it's
we're a family over here.
We all have those people in their family that we don't talk about, those black sheeps, and everyone's got them. And unfortunately, it's my younger brother. And yeah, Pat, I'm sorry.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's embarrassing. I mean,
just think about how your parents feel too. They have to go to church and see their friends in church, knowing what Pat watches on Sundays.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
Yep, that's
your mom should not have to go through that.
I agree, and she get up in age, and I'm not sure how much longer my mom has. And let's face it, can we? I mean, just make her happy once.
Yeah,
seriously,
absolutely.
So, all right, folks. All kidding aside, I love my brother, yeah, I get to bust his balls, and because I know he listens, and I know I'll get a kick out of it. So, but anyway, I think that you have anything else?
Oh, hey, yes, we got to give a late happy birthday. We were out there at your parents' house, to Mrs. Grabowski.
Yep.
Now, granted, this episode's coming out a couple weeks later, but we were just there yesterday. So it was her birthday, and by the time this episode comes out,
it'll be my dad's. So my parents are
happy birthday, Mr. and Mrs. Grabowski.
78 years old and still doing well. So
alive and kicking.
Yep. So yes, happy birthday to you both.
Sounds good.
And that about wraps it up for this episode of 217 South Mills, Bill.
Yes, it does. Thank you again to Pizza Del Rey, the best pizza around, located at 911 North Hastings Way in Eau Claire.
Yep, and to Cabin Coffee Altoona, where you will see me here if you stop by. And if I'm not here, you should call or message me or on the Facebook app, and I'll show up and say hi. I try to be here every minute of my life.
You are here just about every minute of your life. And about the bean sales, too.
Oh, yes.
You can go to Google, type in Cabin Coffee Altoona.
Yep.
The first thing that pops up, click on the website, go to the bean sales, pick out what you like. If you're confused, call the store, ask to speak to Joe. He'll talk you through. He can make blends. There's many different options.
Single origin. Again, and this comes from people requesting, where can we get your coffee? You talk about it. How good is it? Well, we roast on site. We buy our beans green from all over the world. There's a bean menu on the website, and you can email me with your order of what you want. Please put down some information so I can get a hold of you. I got to get paid.
Yep.
And I'll reach out to you. And we have a handful of people now that are just automatic send them coffee once a month, and I roast it up and we ship it out. So if you're interested, check it out. Now I'm gonna give you a warning though. You're gonna have my coffee, and you're gonna be like, "Where the hell has this coffee been my whole life?"
Yes.
Where has it been?
I do agree there.
And then you're gonna be like, "Crap, I'm out of coffee, and I don't want to go taste the other brands that are out there because
they suck.
It's not going to.
It's not. It doesn't even compare.
Okay, you know what? I'm trying to be humble in this, and you're going to say they suck.
Well,
I agree with you, but I'm just trying to be more,
You're trying to have a little couth.
Couth. That's a word.
That is a good word.
And we haven't
that
used
is
that,
a word. Yeah.
And we haven't used that word since college. I remember we threw it on quite a bit in college.
Yep.
So
yes,
kudos to you.
Kudos
to you for bringing that back.
Irregardless.
Irregardless. So yes, go to the website. My bean menu's on there. There is a link to an email on there. Send me an email with your order. Use some information. I will reach out to you personally and get some payment information, and we'll ship it out to you. Done.
Sounds good.
No factor. That's all I got, Bill.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. And Pat, step up your game. Do the right thing for your family.
Come on, Pat. Come on. Just do it, man. Everyone's doing it. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Joe and I today.
We hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you like what you heard, please give 217 South Mills a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Go tell your friends about us. Like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'd like to thank Cabin Coffee Altoona for sponsoring us. Everything is always better at the cabin. See you next time. And remember, folks, Red has to run.